In 1965, the average American woman owned about 6 beauty products. Today, she owns around 40, and her skin is not 6 times better for it. That is worth sitting with for a second, because the beauty industry has spent 60 years selling you the idea that more steps means better skin. 6 products to 40. That is not a scientific breakthrough. That is a business model. And here is what makes it worse. A lot of what those women were doing in 1965 actually worked. It worked well enough that dermatologists are quietly recommending some of it again right now under new names. And the beauty counters are selling it back to you at 40 times the price with a French word on the label. So this is what your grandmother knew. The routines, the products, the specific tricks that got quietly retired, not because they stopped working, but because nobody can build a $100 million brand on something that costs $3 and lasts 8 months. My name is Dorothy, and I am not going to sell you nostalgia. I am also going to tell you which 1960s habits were genuinely terrible and deserve to stay buried, because plenty of what those women did was awful. The baby oil in particular, and the raw steak, which I promise you is not a joke and which we are going to talk about properly, because it is the strangest thing on this list, and half of it is actually true. Let us start with the thing that separates a 1965 routine from a 2026 routine more than anything else. Cold cream and why it disappeared. If you opened a bathroom cabinet in 1965, you found a tub of cold cream, Pond's most likely. Almost every woman in America had one, and it did the job that 4 separate products do in your routine today. Cold cream is a simple emulsion. Oil, water, an emulsifier, usually a wax like beeswax, and that is essentially it. The formula is old, genuinely old. A Greek physician named Galen wrote down a version of it around the 2nd century, and it has been in continuous use ever since, which makes it one of the longest-running cosmetic formulas in human history. You scooped it out, massaged it over a dry face, and it dissolved the day off. Makeup, sunscreen, sweat, city grime, all of it lifted into the oil. Then you wiped it away with a warm, damp cloth, and your skin was clean but never tight, never squeaky, never stripped. Now notice what happened next. Somewhere in the 80s and 90s, the industry decided that clean skin should feel squeaky, and they sold everybody foaming cleansers that stripped the skin barrier down to bare boards. A whole generation grew up believing that tight, tingly, slightly uncomfortable feeling was the feeling of clean. It was not. It was the feeling of a damaged barrier. And here is the part that should genuinely irritate you. The double cleanse method that every skincare account teaches now, the one where you use an oil-based cleanser first and a gentle one second, is cold cream logic, rebuilt and renamed. The expensive cleansing balms in the little glass jars are cold cream with better marketing. Read the ingredients: oil, water, emulsifier, wax. Your grandmother did it in one step, out of a tub that cost about $1. What to take from this? If you wear makeup or sunscreen, remove it with an oil or a balm before you use any water-based cleanser. If your face feels tight after washing, your cleanser is too harsh. Full stop. That is not a personal skin type problem. That is a product problem. Sleeping on your back and the wrinkles nobody warns you about. Women in the 1960s were told seriously and repeatedly to sleep on their backs. It sounds like a fussy old rule. It is not. It is one of the most legitimate pieces of advice in this entire list. and almost nobody talks about it now. Here is why it matters. When you sleep with one side of your face pressed into a pillow for 7 or 8 hours, you are folding the skin in the same places night after night for decades. Those are called sleep lines, and they run vertically on the cheek and across the forehead. Dermatologists can look at a face and tell you which side you sleep on. Sun lines and expression lines you can address. Sleep lines are pure mechanics. You are ironing creases into your face for 25,000 nights. Back sleeping was standard advice, partly because women were setting their hair and did not want to crush it, but the skin benefit was well understood. And there was a second half to the rule that has been forgotten entirely, which is what you slept on. Silk pillowcases were not a luxury product invented by an influencer. They were common, and they were common for a practical reason. Cotton grips the skin and hair and drags. Silk lets your face slide instead of fold. It also does not wick moisture out of your skin the way cotton does, which is why women who use them woke up less dry. What to take from this? Back sleeping is difficult to learn, and you will not master it in a week, but a silk or satin pillowcase costs very little and works immediately, even if you never change position. If you do nothing else from this entire video, this one requires 0 effort after the first purchase. The hot cloth, and why nobody does it anymore. Every 1960s routine involved a washcloth and hot water in a way that modern routines simply do not. You would soak a cloth in water as hot as your hands could stand, wring it out, and press it over your face. Hold it there. Let the heat and steam soften everything. Then wipe the cold cream away with it. 2 things were happening. The warmth loosened the oil and debris in the pores so the cleanser could carry it out, and the nap of the cloth gave a gentle mechanical polish. Not scrubbing, pressing, then wiping. Modern routines replace this with harsh physical scrubs full of ground shells and plastic beads in the 90s, which tore microscopic cuts in the skin, and then replace those with acids, which are excellent, but which a lot of people massively overuse. A warm cloth is not going to transform your skin overnight, but used 2 or 3 times a week, it removes surface dead skin gently, with no chemistry, no cost, and no risk of the overexfoliation that has half of the internet walking around with damaged, stinging red faces right now because they layered 4 acid products in a week. What to take from this? Use a clean washcloth, a fresh one each time, warm, not scalding. Press, then wipe in one direction. Never scrub in circles on the face. Rice water, and the one that turned out to be right. Rice water rinses came to American women in the 1960s through fashion magazines writing about Japanese and Chinese beauty traditions. And it was treated as an exotic curiosity for about 20 years before disappearing entirely. Then it came back around 2020 as a viral trend, and now there is real research being done on it. The tradition is genuine and much older than the 60s. Women of the Yao village in Guangxi, China, have used fermented rice water on their hair for generations and are known for extraordinary hair length well into old age. What the science says is more modest, but not nothing. Rice water contains inositol, which appears to penetrate damaged hair and may help reduce surface friction, and there is a reasonable case for it as a hair rinse. For skin, the evidence is thinner and mostly points to mild soothing and barrier support, rather than the brightening claims that get attached to it. I'm including it because it is the clearest example of the pattern I'm describing. A traditional practice, dismissed and buried, now selling as a $50 bottle of rice ferment essence at the beauty counter. The ferment in the expensive bottle is real. So is the one in your rice pot. What to take from this? Rinse rice, save the cloudy water, let it sit at room temperature for a day. If you want it fermented, use it as a final hair rinse and rinse it out after a few minutes. It costs nothing. Do not expect a miracle and do not leave it on your skin for hours. Petroleum jelly and the sealing habit. Every woman in 1965 had a jar of petroleum jelly and used it on lips, heels, cuticles, elbows, and over her night cream. Then it fell out of fashion because a rumor spread that it clogged pores, which is not accurate for the properly refined product. Refined petroleum jelly is non-comedogenic. The molecules are too large to enter a pore, and it has now come back with a new name. Slugging, the exact same practice, sealing a thin layer over your moisturizer at night, is currently one of the most recommended techniques in dermatology, and there are balms marketed for it at $30 and $40 whose first ingredient is petrolatum. The principle behind it is the one thing worth actually understanding from this whole video. Petroleum jelly does not moisturize. It has no water in it. What it does is seal, cutting water loss from the skin by over 98%. It locks in whatever sits underneath it, which means the order matters more than the product. Damp skin, then your moisturizer, then the seal. If you apply it to bone-dry skin with nothing underneath, you have sealed in nothing, and it will seem useless, which is exactly why some people try it once and give up. What to take from this? This is the highest value, lowest cost item on the list. Lips at night, heels with socks, cuticles, and over your night cream on dry winter skin, but not on the nights you use retinoids or acids, because sealing those in drives them deeper than intended, and you will wake up irritated. The end of the shampoo arms race. Women in 1965 washed their hair once or twice a week. That was the standard, and it was not because they were unhygienic. It was the norm across the entire country. Daily shampooing is a modern invention, and it was invented by shampoo companies, which is not a conspiracy theory. It is marketing history. If a bottle lasts a woman 4 months, you sell 3 a year. If she uses it daily, you sell 12. Between washes, women brushed. 100 strokes was the old saying, and the number is silly, but the practice was not. Brushing from the scalp down distributes the oil your scalp produces along the length of the hair where it belongs, conditioning the ends naturally. The alternative is what most people do now, which is strip the oil off daily with detergent and then buy a bottle of conditioner to put oil back on. Now, an honest caveat, because this depends heavily on your hair and scalp. If you have very fine hair and oily scalp, or you exercise hard daily, washing more often is reasonable, and there is nothing wrong with it. Scalp health matters more than a rule, but most people wash more than they need to and are on a treadmill where overwashing drives more oil production, which drives more washing. What to take from this? Try extending by 1 day, then another. Give it 3 weeks before you judge, because the scalp needs time to recalibrate. Use a boar bristle or natural bristle brush from root to tip on dry hair. Cool rinses and the shine that nobody has anymore. The final cold rinse was standard in 1965, and it has vanished completely. Hot water lifts the outer layer of the hair, the cuticle. Cool water lays it back down flat. A flat cuticle reflects light in one direction, which reads to the eye as shine. A raised one scatters light, which reads as dull and frizzy. This is why hair in photographs from that era looks the way it does, and it costs you 15 unpleasant seconds at the end of a shower. The same principle applies to the face. Cold water on the face in the morning constricts the blood vessels temporarily and reduces the puffiness most people wake up with. This is what a jade roller kept in the fridge does. It is what the expensive cooling globes do. It is cold, applied to skin. What to take from this? End every hair wash with the coldest rinse you can tolerate. 15 seconds. Splash cold water on your face in the morning, or press a chilled spoon under the eyes if you are puffy. Vinegar rinses and product buildup. Apple cider vinegar diluted in water, poured through the hair after shampooing, was common through the 60s. It works for a mechanical reason. Hair is happiest at a slightly acidic pH. Many shampoos, especially older ones, are alkaline, which swells and raises the cuticle. An acidic rinse brings the pH back down and lays the cuticle flat, which produces shine and reduces tangling. It also dissolves the mineral buildup from hard water and the residue from styling products that makes hair go limp and lifeless over time. The clarifying shampoos and pH balancing rinses that sell for $26 are doing this exact job with better packaging. What to take from this? 1 part vinegar to 4 parts water. After shampoo, before or instead of conditioner, then rinse. Once every week or two, not daily. The smell rinses out completely once your hair dries, which is the question everybody asks. Powder as a real technique. Loose powder was used in 1965 in ways that have been mostly forgotten. The obvious use was setting makeup. The forgotten uses are more interesting. A dusting of translucent powder between 2 coats of mascara, applied to the lashes with a small brush, builds visible thickness, and this is still a professional makeup artist technique. Powder pressed onto the lips between 2 coats of lipstick makes the color hold for hours instead of an hour. Powder along the hairline absorbed sweat and oil and kept a set from collapsing, which is what dry shampoo does and what dry shampoo was invented from. None of this is mysterious. It is understanding that powder absorbs oil and adds grip, and then using that fact in more than one place. What to take from this? Lipstick that will not last, powder between coats, mascara that will not build, powder between coats. Use a light hand and translucent powder. Cucumber, tea bags, and the ones that are real. Cucumber slices on the eyes are the most parodied beauty image of that entire decade. Every magazine cover, every advertisement, every film scene about a woman relaxing. And because it got so parodied, everybody now assumes it was nonsense. It is about half nonsense. And the half that is real is worth understanding because it tells you what all the expensive eye products are actually doing. Cucumber is roughly 96% water. That is the whole ingredient list, more or less, plus a little vitamin C and some caffeic acid. There is nothing in it that penetrates skin or repairs anything. Anybody selling you cucumber extract at a premium is selling you water with a produce section on the label. What it genuinely does is 3 things at once, and they all happen on the surface. It is cold, and cold constricts the blood vessels under the eye, which is what reduces morning puffiness. It is wet, which briefly hydrates the thin skin there, and it forces you to lie flat with your eyes closed for 15 minutes, which is doing more than either of the other 2, because gravity is the actual cause of most under-eye puffiness, and lying down with your head slightly raised is what drains it. So the cucumber was never the medicine. The cold, the moisture, and the 15 minutes of stillness were the medicine, and the cucumber was the excuse to take them, which means you can replace it with 2 chilled metal spoons, which work better because metal holds cold longer than a vegetable does. Keep them in the freezer door. Press the backs against the under eye for a couple of minutes. That is the entire effect of a cucumber, faster and with nothing to throw away. Cool used tea bags on the eyes have a better claim than the cucumber. Tea contains caffeine, and caffeine applied topically constricts blood vessels, which is exactly why caffeine appears in a great many expensive eye creams. Cold plus caffeine is a real, if temporary, effect. Steep 2 bags, squeeze them out, chill them in the refrigerator, and use them the same way. Green or black, both have caffeine. Herbal does not, so it will only give you the cold. Oatmeal masks are the strongest of the kitchen remedies and the one with genuine clinical backing. Colloidal oatmeal is an accepted, evidence-supported ingredient for calming irritated and itchy skin, and it appears in medical-grade eczema products today for that reason. Egg white masks, honey masks, mayonnaise hair treatments. Honey has real antibacterial properties and is a humectant, so it is not nothing. Egg white gives a temporary tightening sensation and does nothing lasting. Mayonnaise conditions hair because it is oil and egg, but plain oil does it better without the smell. What to take from this? Oatmeal and honey are worth your time. Cold tea bags for puffy eyes work. Egg whites and mayonnaise are folklore with a kernel in them, and you can skip both. The raw steak and what was really going on. Now, the strangest one, and I am giving it a section of its own because the truth here is genuinely interesting. A raw steak slapped over a black eye. You have seen it in 100 films and cartoons from that era, and it was not invented for the screen. Women and men both did it, and it was standard enough advice that you would hear it from a neighbor before you would hear it from a doctor. Here is the honest verdict. The steak is doing exactly one thing, and it is the same thing the cucumber was doing. It is cold. It came out of an icebox. Cold constricts the blood vessels, which limits the bleeding under the skin that makes a bruise spread, and it numbs the ache. That part is real medicine, and it is still the first thing any doctor tells you to do for a fresh bruise. Cold within the first day, for short stretches. What the meat itself contributes is nothing. There is no enzyme in a steak that heals a bruise, no protein that crosses into the skin, no mysterious property. It was cold and it was floppy, so it draped over the curve of the eye socket better than a hard block of ice did, and in a house without a flexible ice pack, that shape was the entire advantage. And now the part that should make you put the steak down. Raw meat carries bacteria, salmonella, E. coli, Campylobacter, all of it sitting on the surface of that steak and pressed directly against the thinnest skin on your body, an inch from an open eye, quite possibly over broken skin that came with the injury. Emergency physicians have spent decades asking people to stop doing this because an eye infection is a substantially worse problem than the bruise you were treating. So the principle survives and the steak does not. This is a good example of what I mean by buried knowledge being worth sorting rather than swallowing whole. Our grandmothers were right about the treatment and wrong about the delivery vehicle because the cold was all they could see and the meat was what happened to be cold. Use a bag of frozen peas wrapped in a thin towel. It drapes over the eye socket the same way the steak did, which was the whole point of the steak, and it is clean. 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off for the first day or so. After the first 24 hours, cold stops helping and gentle warmth is better because by then you want the blood to move out rather than stay put. And the rule underneath all three of these, the cucumber, the tea bag, and the steak, is one rule. Cold, applied to the face, does something real and temporary. Everything else about those remedies was packaging, which is exactly what the $40 chilled roller at the beauty counter is too. Now the ones that deserve to stay buried. I said I would not sell you nostalgia. So here is the honest half. Baby oil in the sun. This was enormously popular, and it is the single most damaging beauty practice of the era. Women coated themselves in oil, sometimes with iodine mixed in for color, sometimes using a reflector to concentrate the sun on the face. Oil does not protect skin. It intensifies the burn. The skin cancer and the photoaging that generation carries into old age came substantially from this. Sunscreen existed, but sun protection was not the culture. This one is not a forgotten secret. It is a forgotten mistake. Lemon juice on the face and hair. It was used to lighten freckles and hair. Lemon juice is strongly acidic, disrupts the skin barrier, and worse, contains compounds that cause a phototoxic reaction in sunlight, which can produce real burns and lasting dark patches. Never put citrus on your skin and go outside. Extreme brow plucking. Purely aesthetic, but worth mentioning because the follicles frequently do not recover, and a lot of women who plucked to a pencil line in their 20s had no brows to speak of at 50. Hairspray and lacquer in volumes that would strip paint, combined with backcombing so aggressive it broke the hair shaft. The hair damage from that decade was real, and the general standard of pain tolerance. Rollers slept in all night. Girdles, setting lotions that smelled like solvent, sitting under a hood dryer for an hour twice a week. The endurance those routines required is genuinely worth not romanticizing. What actually got buried and why? Step back from the individual tricks and look at the shape of it. 6 products in 1965. 40 now, and the specific things that got replaced were, almost without exception, the cheap, multi-purpose, long-lasting ones. A tub of cold cream that did 4 jobs became 4 bottles. A jar of petroleum jelly that did 8 jobs became 8 products. A vinegar rinse became a clarifying system. Nobody held a meeting about this. It does not require one. It requires only that every company in an industry has an obvious incentive to sell you more units, and no company has any incentive at all to remind you that a $3 tub already handles it. At the same time, and I want to be fair here, plenty of what came after 1965 is genuinely better. Modern sunscreen is a real advance, and it is not close. Retinoids are the most evidence-backed anti-aging ingredient that exists. Vitamin C serums, niacinamide, ceramide formulations, properly formulated acids, all real, all better than anything on a 1965 vanity. Anyone telling you the old way was better in every respect is selling you something too. The point is not that the past was wiser. It is that the past was cheaper and simpler in the places where cheap and simple actually work. And those are exactly the places the industry had the strongest reason to make you forget. So here is the whole thing, compressed. Remove your makeup with oil or balm before you cleanse. Never let your face feel tight afterward. Use a warm cloth 2 or 3 times a week instead of scrubs. Seal. Do not just moisturize, and always onto damp skin. Sleep on silk, on your back if you can manage it. Wash your hair less and brush it more. End every wash with cold water. Vinegar rinse every 2 weeks. Powder between coats. Oatmeal for irritation. Cold caffeine for puffiness. Frozen peas rather than a steak. And wear sunscreen, which is the one thing they did not know, and the one thing that matters more than everything else on this list combined. 10 habits. Most of them cost nothing. All of them are older than the industry that spent 60 years teaching you to buy your way around them.